Okay, right, listen, there's a couple of questions in the chat, all the same thing, basically. When are you doing the Bedford levels experiment?
Right. I'm having, although people like George and many other people saying it's going to fail, I shouldn't try and do a live stream of it. I'm still sort of aiming for about sort of 4 or 5 weeks time. But yes, I'm just getting together things like the required telescopes and the camera streaming systems and the people and all the battery I require, all the hardware, computers, the Ethernet stuff, all the posts, all the targets, all the people's mobile streaming systems, and there's quite a lot involved here, and I haven't got it all together yet, so it's all a bit provisional. But people are offering me in all sorts of ways, and but this is obviously it might be the difference between whether I do this live or not, depending on whether I can get the GoFundMe live. They might have, and I might name some stations. I've got 5 stations in this thing, and if people might, for instance, I might say, well, if you want to have a station named after you, say something like, do what Sly did and say, well, if you want to have a station, there are 5 platforms in which where the targets would be going up, and I might say, well, you know, for 100 quid or something, you get a station named after you, and then of course, if it all goes wrong, I'll promise to jump in the canal. If it doesn't give me the results I'm after.
You promised to jump in the canal with did you say some rocks tied to your ankles?
No, fortunately, I think it's only about 6 feet deep, so I should be able to survive even if I did have rocks hanging off me.
We could try it. We could test that. We could test that theory, if you like.
I think if I was to put the rocks on, I think I might be asking a little bit more
around your neck.
I think I might insist on some GoFundMe. I think I might insist on some GoFundMe if I'm going to do that. But I will certainly be.
So I'm finding it funny, right. Rumpus. I'm finding
you
it.
You might be right. But anyway, if I don't have to raise the far post at 5.5 miles, 20 feet, then I will be jumping in the canal. All this will be, well, assuming that people are prepared to fund the stream, because I say it involves well over £1,000 to do all this with all the equipment. It's easily that.
What sort of equipment are you looking for?
Well, I'm going to use a telescope because I need to be able to pick out something 5 feet wide over a distance of 6 miles. I need to then stream this, and there's also building the targets and things, and God knows what else, and all the simultaneous broadcasting. And then I also want to make sure it doesn't fail. So I'm going to have some people back in a studio taking in all about 6 streams and then winging them out to everybody on the live stream. It's quite a lot of stuff, and people like George and others have. Dean, as Stingray has said, you do realise the BBC would find this a bit challenging to do a live stream of this, and they're a bit sceptical I should even be trying to do the live stream. But I'm going to try. But it might all fail. I mean, I've already found out about 50 reasons why this might fail. So,
Rumpus, can I just interrupt real quick?
Hang on, wait a minute. 50 reasons. Hold on. 50 reasons why it might fail. Does one of them include the fact that it might not actually be a globe?
No, that wouldn't be a fail. That if I was actually able to get 50 reasons why I might not be able to get the data. In other words, it could be raining, the mobile reception could be wrong, there could be I could not get the team, my computer might fail, my stream might fail, the people in the studio might fail. Dean's doing a fly-through on a drone for me, and I'm also doing some 3D modeling of it so that people can see what we're flying through. We'll have a drone image as well. There's about 50 reasons, and weather could of course be crap. The police could turn up, or rest. And there are all sorts of reasons. I've got to set up a little tent station as well to get the power required. I need an inverter. I need several marine batteries to do all this, to power all this. So there are about 50 different lines on my critical path in this project management that can go wrong, which will cause this to go. But it wouldn't be a failure if I actually managed to get the live stream, I raised the targets and got to a particular height, and that all worked. That would not be a failure if it then showed that I didn't have to raise the far post by 20 feet. That wouldn't be a failure of the experiment. That would be a result. I'm just trying to. When I say a failure, I mean it wouldn't give me a result.
Okay.
Rumpus. Yes.
Okay,
I have 2 questions. Okay. Rumpus, you said you're going to make an observation or a measurement or something.
Yeah, I'll quickly explain that if you like. Do you want me to explain that?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So we've got the
2 questions.
Okay, we've got a 6 month.
Okay. Hold on, I got 2 questions about it.
Okay, go ahead.
How are you going to measure? You said you're going to see how many feet of this thing are hidden. How are you going to measure feet?
No, it's not hidden. No, it's not hidden. That's not how we're going to do it. So let me just explain it quickly. So we've got a 6-mile canal, straight, and I'm going to put some posts on it, all at the same height, a bit like the Bedford levels experiment by Robotham, and I'm going to then use an auto level to keep them all in line. So I'll then raise the posts up to. I'll be looking through an auto level, which will tell me where the horizontal is. You're scraping, John. You're scraping your microphone, John.
Okay, sorry.
And then I'll be looking through this auto level, the crosshairs, and then we'll raise the posts up as they get. All the teams on all the stations will live be raising up the posts, and I'll be telling them when through the crosshairs of my auto level, saying, yeah, you've now reached that thing. And of course, on a flat Earth, they would all have the same level. The posts would all be at the same height. But on a curved Earth, the one 6 miles away will have to raise his post a whole 20 feet. So then make that in line with all the others.
Well, this is optically, and I mean, you guys got tons of optical measurements. Don't you think it'd be a better idea to do more of the more tangible sort of measurement?
Like what?
I don't know, something tangible that doesn't involve optics, refraction.
You have to use optics, I'm afraid.
Perspective. You have to?
Yes. Unless you're prepared to accept GPS or something, the only way you can say, look at this thing over here. You can obviously measure the post. You can obviously physically say how high you've had to raise the post up. The people at the 5.5 miles distance away will have raised their post up by 20 feet. In theory, of course, if it's a flat Earth, they wouldn't have to raise it up any more than anybody else. But if there's a curved Earth, we're predicting
unless refraction, perspective, a whole bunch of optical effects are taking
If you knew anything about perspective, you would know that things at the same eye level do not suffer from perspective effects. So that's irrelevant. The refraction effect. Let me finish.
No, that's wrong.
No, it's not wrong. Refraction is an issue. I would accept that, and I'm going to have to make allowances for it. But it's not of the same scale as the curvature. But yes, you're right. There is a refraction effect. But we can make allowances. We can also measure it on the day by various means of saying we've got this much refraction. Because I'm also going to be using some thermistor arrays to measure the temperature of the air at various heights up to about 5 meters or more, 8 meters or whatever. So we actually get the temperature profile of the air all the way along. So at the 6 stations, there are 6 bridges over this canal, and we may just do 4 or 5 of them. And at each one of those, there'll be a station with a temperature, a thermistor array measuring the temperature profile. And so we will know what the temperature is. And there from that, we can determine refraction. You can also measure refraction directly using various techniques called reciprocal zenith measurement, simultaneous reciprocal zenith measurement, which means you can actually work out how much refraction there is on the day. But you are correct. That is something I'll have to allow for. I mean, Sly, for instance, I don't know if you're familiar with Sly Scabar-Kane did an experiment. Not only a little bit like mine, but he didn't allow for any refraction, and he was trying to deal with just a difference of 2 inches when the error in the measurement is so large that you're going to lose 2 inches. But here, hopefully, if we can see the distant post, which is not guaranteed, there'll be a difference of 20 feet or so.
Are you taking like angular size and everything into consideration as well?
No, you don't need to do that. That's irrelevant.
So things don't get smaller as they go off into
the distance. Indeed. And indeed, actually, in saying I wasn't ignoring it, I'm going to build these targets, and I'm going to build them at different sizes so they all appear in the auto level. And I'm going to do this live view stream, hopefully, if I can afford to do the bits and people contribute or whatever.
So you are accounting for it.
Well, only for not sizes. As part of the theory of the curvature, but just visually, so that when okay, let me just finish. But when we do the live stream, when you're looking through this telescope that I'm going to get, then all the targets will be the same size, even though they are only 1 mile, 2 miles, 4 miles, and 6 miles away. I'll make them different sizes. Them. Yes, but the perspective doesn't make any difference to the height. It's enough. I don't have to make any allowances of perspective about how high the posts are. I only have to make allowances for the visual impression. And I thought people would like to see these targets all looking the same size, even though one is at 5.5 miles away and the other one is only a mere mile away.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paige. Gosh, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
So you don't think you have to account for perspective, and you are going to account for refraction.
You don't have to. If you understood anything about perspective, anything in a line eye level, there's no. In other words, there is a perspective effect in terms of the size of the targets, but not their position. Not the targets are not going to be any further up or down in the view due to perspective. The thing that changes is their size.
How much off would you have to be in order to make sure that was correct. You can get something perfectly level, or because if you're off just a little bit, things can appear to go up or down.
Well, I'm going to be using a very accurate auto level that is capable, was accurate to 0.1, whatever it is, point zero, is it 0.01 or 0.001? Damn, I can't remember degrees.
Okay, whatever number
error.
this is.
It's a very small error. It's like 1.5 millimeters over a kilometer. Something like that.
And how much do you think you need to be off by in order to make things start to appear to rise or fall in the distance?
Well, that depends on refraction. He has no control over that variable.
The refraction is nothing like as big as the 20 feet.
That's all great rhetoric, Rumpus. But the problem is, you're going to make one observation at one particular time to have nothing to contrast it to. Not the day before, not the day after. You're not going to have any way to verify that what you're looking at is in the same location at another time and set of conditions.
Well, given that you're incapable of operating a camera properly to actually get the same measurement, we're actually going to do something across the whole day, and we're going to be every half an hour on hour. If the refraction conditions, we're going to check the refraction conditions and the temperature, and we're going to move all the targets every day, every hour. We're going to do a check on the horizontal and move the targets up and down. So throughout the whole day, over a period, I don't know 8 hours or something, we will be adjusting these targets, and we'll actually see how refraction changes over a period of 8 hours.
All right, just a real quick question on that same line of thought. Are you going to have, say, like a video recorder being like a third eye perspective?
Mark, Doctor, you're scraping something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, folks. I want to talk to you about this.
You're sorry.
Hold on, just real quick.
Travis.
Yeah. I would just suggest maybe you have a video camera taking a view of the observation as well, besides your theodolite.
Yes, we are. My God, haven't you been listening? This is going to be live streamed. You'll be able to see this whole thing for 8 hours, if that gets funding for it, through a live stream.
All right, chill out,
all the
Rumpus.
stations, hold on, and all the station people will have live streaming as well. And then it's going to be mixed in a producer online somewhere, probably by GeoStreamer, and pumping all of this out to everybody, so you'll be able to see everything from all angles all the time.
So let me get this right, Rumpus.
Telescope. Carry on, Runty.
Right, okay, so you've never done any filming. I asked you this before, and you told me that you'd actually never done any filming, but you're going to go and organise this thing. So
correct.
Who's going to do the filming?
Me.
Okay.
And this is going to be your very first time handling a camera?
Okay.
This is going to be a shit show.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're now one of the. You're now the 75th person to say it's going to fail. Okay,
if you're going to go and try and see nothing, then the best thing that you can do to go and try and see nothing is to send somebody that's never held a camera before, because that way you will see nothing.
Well,
because ultimately that will be your result will be to see nothing, and if you can't get the camera to focus.
If you like.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to say, look.
Do you know anyone that could help you, Rumpus? Like
I've got 8 people. I've got 8 people on the team.
No, I mean like someone who can do the filming for you, like someone who.
I believe I'm capable of doing the filming.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Well.
You're not getting any money from me.
Yeah. Sorry, I won't be helping with that one either.
You know, I mean, if you want flat earthers, would you like flat earthers to assist you?
Well, the Dr. John Dee has expressed an interest in coming along, and I think Bev was threatening to send his son.
I think you should try to get a hold.
Bev's been told about this and everything.
Have you any idea what the actual canal's like? I mean, you know, the Bedford levels. You do realise you're probably going to have to go and chop the weeds down and the reeds down.
I have researched the site very carefully.
So you are aware of that. That's fine. So you're gonna 6 miles. You're gonna de-weed a whole area all along the canal, so that you can see from point A to point B.
I have researched a suitable site.
It's all overgrown, Rumpus. The whole canal is overgrown with reeds.
Yeah, you don't want to waste the money, Rumpus. Best to get as much advice as possible.
The only reason I'm telling you this
else went there
is
and
because
had that problem.
Yeah, I wanted to do this before. I wanted to do this about 3 years ago. I wanted to do it with Antonio Subirats. And somebody informed me, and sure enough, I did my research and I found out that it's true, that entire canal, because it's no longer in use, is completely covered in reeds from one end through the other. In order for you to actually see across that actual 6 mile stretch, you would have to go in you'd have to get a couple of canoes and you'd have to be cutting down the reeds the whole 6 mile stretch, and it would probably take you a couple of days to actually clear a path so that you could see from one end to the other.
That's a different site.
There's a 6 mile stretch that's the only 6 mile stretch part.
There is a suitable site of 6 miles that is not covered in reeds that I haven't reconnaissed it fully yet, but I will be, and I've identified a site that is suitable that does not require me to go doing some reed cutting.
Well,
can I ask for you to
let
get
this be on the
footage of
record.
that?
Let this be on the record right now that I have informed the Rumpus that that what he's trying to do, and to just turn up and roll up there and see 6 miles across a beautiful flat river, canal, whichever way you choose to think of it, it's not going to happen, because that has reeds in it from one end to the other. So you've been forewarned.
Thank you, Ranty.
So do not, so when you actually go,
I'll take that as constructive criticism. I'm always keen on constructive criticism.
Unless
I don't mind if it's any. In fact, I attract constructive criticism. I want the most ruthless, not abusive, that would be wrong, the most ruthless criticism of what I'm about to do from anybody, because I believe in the critical process as part of the peer review process in science.
Okay.
The more criticism you get, the better it will be. Something like Sly's problem, for instance.
Yeah. Are you going to film it from the bridge? Are you going to film it from the bridge?
I'm going to film it from a bridge, but you're not familiar with the site that I'm going to use.
I think it was done. The Bedford levels was redone a few years ago now from some flat earthers.
Yeah, it was.
That did it from the bridge as well, and that was lambasted. That was lambasted. I'm just going to say that I appreciate they went and did it, but it was lambasted for their attempt. Be aware of that.
Indeed, and Dr. John D tried to do it, I think, with a few people last year, and he tried to use boats and things, and he unfortunately couldn't do anything because everything was obscured by inferior mirages. But I have means of I'm going to avoid this problem.
How are you going to avoid it? Right, because me and Travis will be really interested in this. How are you going to remove the effect of the inferior mirage?
Because I am going to do it elevated on a bridge that's going to be 20 feet above where the inferior mirage will be, and the posts that I'm going to raise up will be another 20 feet above that, giving a total height of about 35 feet, which I believe will be enough to get you out of any inferior mirages that might be there.
So you're going to be at an elevation of 35 feet, taking the photography. Yeah. So how are you going to? So you say you're on the bridge.
Yes.
What are you going to then put on the bridge to elevate you even higher?
Right. Well, this is why I'm doing this particular form of this thing, where at one end, I mean, if it's a global Earth, there'll be one end where I'm about 20 feet, 15 feet above the water level, and then the far end, if it's a globe Earth, will be another 20 feet up. So that will be on a target on a big post of 20 feet high, on top of the 15 feet that the bridge at the far end will be, and so that target will be of another 20. So I don't have to arranged it so that the observer is low down and all the targets are high up, so I don't have the problem that you're worrying about.
Okay, so you do realise though that the inferior mirage is not where the Earth curve is. The inferior mirage is actual blockage in the atmosphere.
Well, it forms. It's close to the. It's going to be close to when your vision near the horizontal. It's going to be low, and if I can get above where that is going to be, and I haven't done any reconnaissance yet to establish.
You've never done any film, Rumpus. You've never done any filming in your life, and you're talking about raising yourself up above an inferior mirage to get yourself out of it, and you haven't got the foggiest clue what you're talking about. You've never held. I'm sorry, Rumpus, but Rumpus, this is really poor research on your behalf. If you don't understand what the research, if you don't understand what the Inferior Mirage is and how it blocks things out, no, you don't. You've never even taken a picture of it. You've never even used a camera.
You are underestimating.
You wanted to be told where you think you're going to go wrong, and I'm telling you.
I'm fine. I'm not complaining. I'm not.
Because what you're going to do is you're going to show, you'll be able to show that there is an object that's risen up 20 feet in the distance. You may be able to film in it on the camera, you may be able to get the shot. But what you won't be able to do if you do have an Inferior Mirage is you will lower that and you will get down and then suddenly it'll go behind the Inferior Mirage and you will claim then that it has gone behind Earth curve because you can't see it without understanding what a Inferior Mirage actually is.
I am not, if you can't see it, I'm not going to make any claims about where it should be. I'm only going to work from the evidence, the optical evidence. I'm not going to say it's being obscured by the Inferior Mirage, but it's there really. I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to work on what will be seen. I'm not going to make anything up. I'm just going to work up the evidence in front of me, and you'll be able to see it live, hopefully, and you will be able to then come to your own conclusions about whether...
Can you film it at night?
Well, then you wouldn't be able to see.
If you got like some neon lights or something, let's suppose you got some neon lights or something like that, something that's not super bright but something you can capture on the camera. It's only 6 miles away, so you should be able to do that. And at night time, you won't have the Inferior Mirage. Well, right after sunset, you probably still will have the Inferior Mirage for about an hour. But once it goes dark, it tends to all evaporate. Now, I've seen shore-to-shore 18 miles, 20 miles at night time.
Mark, you're making a hell of a lot of noise, Mark.
Now,
I want to ask a question.
Now, let me suggest.
I couldn't hear you.
Let me suggest that you do it at night time rather than daytime.
I did consider that. Now, that's an interesting suggestion. An interesting constructive suggestion. Like all your comments, I don't agree with them, but they're constructive, and I'm taking them on board. You're right that at night it would be, but I did think that people. You see, the thing is, people might claim that I'm faking it or something if it was just some lights going up and down. Whereas if it's during the daytime, because I got this live stream, you will be able to see everything. And whereas if it's just a series of 5 lights that are going up and down in the thing, people are saying, well, that could be anything.
Well, why don't you do a time lapse? Why don't you get some bulbs on a line, right? Some bulbs on a line and have them every 2 feet or so. Start at 20 feet and work all the way down. Turn them on when it's starting to go dusk so you can film them from the bridge, and then just do a time lapse for the next 2 hours, taking photographs of them until it goes dark and it's at least an hour after darkness, and then you'll have a result. You'll have seen it during the daytime, well, dusk, and you'll have seen it during nighttime, and you will have a continuous camera angle directly on the lights in the distance.
I mean,
that's a good idea.
I could put some lights on it. There's nothing stopping me, of course. I could do both, I suppose. It's a constructive idea, Randy. Thank you very much for that. I could put lights on these targets and then repeat the carry on the observation into the evening and night. I could do both, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, because
I could do both.
I have a feeling
I could do both. That's a very interesting idea.
During the day, the optics for when you're filming across those sort of conditions that you're talking about, it's going to be tricky, very tricky for somebody that even knows how to use a camera. Someone that doesn't, it's just bad. And if you've got an Inferior Mirage, you might as well just. You might as well just forget it entirely if you've got that Inferior Mirage there. But that would be interesting actually wait a minute. So if you was to actually put the lights on at dusk, if you had an Inferior Mirage, because what you would do then is you would be filming in the distance with a time lapse, and you would see the change from daytime to nighttime, and you would see what happens to those bulbs. And then suddenly, if you can't see some of those bulbs at a certain time, I pretty much guarantee at night time you will. You'll get down right to the bottom. It's only 6 miles, isn't it?
Live stream, Randy. So there's no need to do a time lapse. You would actually see it live, and if people could do anything, with the video, you could then compress it and do whatever you like with it. So you'll get a constant. I don't need to do a time lapse if I'm doing a live stream.
Well, somebody else must have a camera that can do a time lapse from.
Well, yes, I could use it. Well, yes, but this is an observation over 6 miles. This light we're talking about will be difficult to pick out. I suppose I could make it bigger, I suppose.
No, they wouldn't.
I don't know, actually. Yeah, I suppose I don't know what I don't know. So I don't know how bright a light would have. I suppose, actually, I suppose it might not be that bad. Actually, a light might be more visible on the target. Actually, yes. Well, certainly, Ranty, that's a very constructive point. And you've now inspired me to. Okay, I'll now have to invest in some lights at each station, put them on the target, and then carry on the observation into the evening. So you'll get both. Yes, I mean that's a very
okay. Right. Okay. Well,
thank you very much for that.
Right. Anybody else want to have a chat with Rumpus? I'm going to go on mute for a couple of minutes.
Oh, Mark was trying to chat to me, and he's now gone. Oh.
Yeah, his microphone I think was playing up. I don't think he had a
yes, he
a
kept
very
on
good
saying
line.
he was trying to ask a question. I don't know whether he's implying I was stopping from. I don't know whether he's implying I was.
I didn't hear him at all. His mic wasn't working very well. That scratching that you were hearing, I think it was his.
It's him, but he then said, when I said, "What are you doing, Mark?" He then said, "I'm trying to ask a question." Right. Didn't you hear him say that?
Yeah, he did. And then I heard that, and then he left.
Okay, right. Anybody else got some input on this Bedford levels experiment?
Yeah, one question. Hey, Rumpus, do you plan on doing a smaller scale proof of concept ahead of time, or have you already done it?
I will be doing lots of reconnaissance beforehand to give me the maximum chance of it working, but I accept there are about 50 possible things that could go wrong, particularly the live streaming side and all the all that side of stuff. In the conditions, I haven't done a full reconnaissance of it to see whether or not. I'm going to go there hopefully in the next few days to act with a spotting scope to actually identify whether or not there's some massive Inferior Mirage, for instance, and also the mobile reception. I mean, there are so many things that can go wrong, but I believe that even though there are at least 50 things that can go wrong and screw it up, I believe there is a chance of success. And I've got a team of people who will help me. And so I will I will be doing lots of research into it. So yes, I'm hoping that if there is going to be a problem, I'll find it sooner rather than later. And I'm not going to just turn up there and try it out first time.
Well,
no, so I believe.
I have a question.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm all for it. I'm just wondering, I'm suggesting that you should do a smaller scale proof of concept.
And that's a very good point. That I agree with you, and indeed I will be doing something like that. I've already got some things prepared to try and do at least some part of the thing beforehand, just not the proper thing, but at least to establish that I can, for instance, see. Well, unfortunately, I won't have something that will enable me to see 5.5 miles and distinguish something. That's a big problem. But I can do something like establish that I can see, say, 2 miles, and put a target there and see what happens. See if I can see something.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Earlier, you said it was 0.01 degrees or 0.001 degrees accuracy on the level. Yeah. How much would you? Yeah, it's fine. How much would you need to be off in order for over that course of distance, miles and miles? How much would you need to be off in order for things to start appearing to go up or down in the distance?
Right. So in other words, you're saying if the auto level, what error in the auto level would make things would interfere with the 20 feet? In other words, I believe in theory, the globe mod will say you'd have to have about 20 feet or so adding on. So in other words, you're saying, would the error in the auto level be such that you could get a 20-foot error in it? And I don't believe so. I can't remember. I did do the calculations on this, but I don't think even over 5.5 miles I could try and do the calculation now. But I do believe that the auto level is sufficiently accurate that it would only be for a few feet. I'd have to. That's a vision. Don't quote me on that, but it's not going to be of the order of 20 feet. The accuracy, and I'm going to check the auto level soon. There's a way of calibrating it so I can establish how accurate it is, and then I will obviously check
something.
Okay, so
something could be very. Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, I understand you've got a reasonable point, Jeremy. You're basically saying, hold on, is the auto level sufficiently accurate, a distance of 5.5 miles, not to screw up this 20? Is there going to be a 20 feet error in the auto level over a distance of 5.5 miles? Which is a perfectly reasonable question, and I believe that is not the auto level is more accurate than that I've got, much more accurate.
Okay, so my point is, my next question is, why? Why are you doing this? I mean, let's suppose that you do this observation, And let's suppose you do it on a really great day where you don't have an inferior mirage, and you just see wonderfully shore to shore. In fact, you see it's such a weird feeling. You actually go down to the shoreline and you're able to look across the whole 6 miles from the shoreline, down at sort of like...
I'm on a bridge, Renty. I'm doing this observation from a bridge.
So when you see this from the bridge, you're so dumbfounded by what you've actually been able to see, you want to go lower to test your own eyes and your camera. And then you go...
to do that?
Well, you go lower, and because I have a feeling that once you actually start to do observations and you see that it's flat, you'll want to put it to the test. It's like what I did. It becomes an addiction. So let's just suppose that you see this and you want to go down and see it from lower, and you go down from see it from lower and you see the same thing.
The way I've organised this is to avoid going low.
So when your results come back and that they show that you can see wonderfully, right, shore to shore, and especially at night time when it all settles down and you see all these lights forming all the way down to the bottom, you're only just going to turn around and say it's refraction that's caused it.
Well, I'll jump in the canal first, because if it does give me a result that's not consistent with the global Earth, I'll have to jump in the canal. I think I'll make that promise now, and then I'll have to, and then I'll be doing all these other measurements I was talking about, the measuring the temperature profile, etc., etc. I'll be able to know what the refraction effect is, and I know fundamentally, unless it's a very strange sort of black swan type day, you do not get the level of refraction that would account for 20 feet difference. It would be much less than that. It'd just be a foot or two, the refraction effect. So knowing that, I've forgotten what your question was. So I would know that the refraction effect can be a maximum about 2 feet if it's a normal day. Obviously, if you've got a black swan type day, or some of the experiences you've had of very cold water.
6 miles isn't far. 6 miles is not far, Rumpus. The amount of times that Travis here, myself, Mark Doxey, even who goes out and does his filming, we all go out and we see much further distances than that. In fact, when we go to 6 miles, it's pretty clear that we're seeing pretty flat. So
I'm saying you won't. I'm saying you won't. I'm saying you will have to put a post up at 20 feet higher at the other end to make it look in a line.
So you're going to do this observation, and let's suppose it comes back as being flat.
Well, I say after I've jumped in the canal, I will then have to come up with some. I will
some
have
refraction.
While I'm under the water,
I'll have to come up with
some air.
I just got one more question for Rumpus, real quick. You said you're going to make the width of the sticks bigger as you get farther, so they're all visually the same size.
Correct.
Are you going to do that with the length of the sticks, so they all visually appear the same size?
The target's a rectangle, so I'll just make the rectangles of the targets. So they're on posts, and so the distant one will be 5 feet high. The nearer one, they'll gradually get small. So the one at 5 miles will be 5 feet high. The one at 3 miles will be 3 feet high, and the one at 2 miles will be 2 feet high, and the one at 1 mile will be 1 foot high.
What?
That's what perspective does. There's a linear effect.
Let me shout out Rhett Priestley for his super chat. The Rumpus, read the Forbes report. It includes you when you're out of your field of expertise. Thank you for the super chat.
So Rumpus, you said you're going to make them wider and taller, and you're only going to lift.
So they're going to be rectangles. They'll just be scaled versions of one another. And so the more, as I say, the most distant one will probably be about 5 feet high, and then the one at 4 miles will be 4 feet high, and the one at 3 miles will be 3 feet high. And so visually, they will all look through this telescope that I'm going to get, through and with an amplifier, and then a camera on the end of that to stream it. All those targets, or even though they're covering a 5 mile distance, they will all appear to be the same angular size. And as I say, the furthest one will be 5 feet high, so it'll be quite a big target. They'll have an angular size, I think, of it's 0.01 degrees. It will be the angular size. Was it not? Oh, God, I can't remember what it is now. About 0.1 degrees.
So where's your camera? Where's your focal? The center of your lens going to be?
It's going to be
on the top of the board.
No. The observation site be on a bridge, and you'll be looking at all these targets in the distance.
Where in relation to the target? Well, the first target.
I'm going to measure. I'm going to use an auto level to generate a horizontal from the observation point, and then I'm going to raise or lower the targets to make them the same optical along that horizontal that the auto level's giving me. So I then raise, so the one at 5 miles, I'm presuming, if it's a globe, if the globe is correct, that I will have to raise the target by 20 feet to bring it into the crosshairs on the auto level.
You're misunderstanding me, I think. Maybe I didn't explain it enough. Your horizontal that you're creating with the auto level.
Yeah.
Where on your target is it aligned? If your
well, I've got a middle.
is
I've got a middle point on the target, and I will raise the middle of the target to line up with the crosshair.
And then you're going to have gradually bigger and bigger actual size targets that will look the same size optically because of perspective, and you're going to line up the middle of those.
Yes, correct.
I got to think this through.
I just got one more question about the auto level.
Okay.
How do they know? How do they know it's accurate that much over 5 miles? Did they ever check it against anything?
Yeah, that's what.
Or they
all auto levels have a calibration thing. I think the one that I've got claims to be over. I think it's a kilometer. Claims to be within 2 millimeters. It's only got a 2 millimeter error over 1 kilometer.
What straight horizontal thing did they measure? Did they verify this with?
Well, that's how they're designed. They come with a certification, these auto levels, to say that they're accurate.
Yes. Did they make sure with a 1
Of course they did. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to give a certificate, would they?
Don't they have like a plumb bob thing inside them?
They do that as well. Yes, exactly.
That's why it's auto level. Like it automatically, because it's got a little plumb bob thing inside it.
Correct.
It can't be anything but level.
Oh, well, it can, because, I mean, you've got to... although, in principle, you're right, Paige, but unfortunately, just the way that, the world and practical things are, you're trying to get accurate... I mean, the accuracy we're dealing with here is tiny fractions of a degree, and you only need to mismanufacture something, or something's not quite working right in the auto level, and you can... And as Jeremy's worried about the errors, and he's absolutely right to be, that that you only need a tiny manufacturing problem, or you jiggled it, dropped it, whatever, you can have introduce an error that would...
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So Jeremy's absolutely right to worry about the accuracy, but they know about these problems, the people who make these auto levels, and they go to great lengths. If you look at the documentation on them, they talk about a 1 kilometer verification procedure they use on this. There's something called a 1 kilometer back and forth to check that the auto level is accurate, and they're certified. And in fact, you can even
Is it the auto level that is the difference with this observation compared to any other, 6 or 10 mile, observation that anyone else has done?
I mean, just commenting on what Ranty said, he was going on saying 6 miles, not very much. But the point is, we're expecting a 20-foot drop over 6 miles.
Good luck with that, mate. You're not going to see a 20-foot drop over 6 miles.
Yeah, we've never seen a drop.
Well, you will. That's what you're going to see.
So far.
You won't.
Well,
then why haven't we seen that before? Why haven't we seen that?
I don't know why Ranty doesn't think he hasn't seen one, because everyone else who's done his observation does.
Dear me. Right. Okay, Rumpus. Are you going to wear a mask, or are you going to actually show your face?
I was thinking of still wearing some deep sunglasses and wearing a very smart suit and trying to obscure myself as much as possible, to sort of maintain some sort of anonymity. I certainly won't wear a mask. I don't believe in those things. But I will probably dress up in some strange way to to preserve some sort of anonymity.
So you mean dress up normal then?
Yes, right. That's right. Yes. I will wear a sharp suit or something, and something.
I have a question.
Okay, go on,
Travis.
You said you're going to do some reconnaissance sometime coming up?
Yep.
Would you mind taking a chance at making a prediction as to what you're going to find on that day, depending on your ability to measure temperature and...
Well, I won't be measuring temperature on that day. I suppose I wasn't actually going to measure temperature on that day. I mean, I suppose I could, but
I would just be interested.
You'll need to.
But I mean, the reconnaissance thing is not going to be establishing anything except. I mean, the thing I'm going to care about is, for instance, can I see? Using this spotting scope that goes up to 125 times, I'm going to try and see how far I can actually see with 125 times. If I can make out the bridge at say 3 miles. And whether or not there's a chance, whether or not I can see the one at 5 miles.
Yes, you will, Rumpus.
So,
but ultimately, then, if you're not going to be able to do it on the reconnaissance, I'm wondering if, in part of your observation, would you mind including in that taking the lapse rate where you're at and making a prediction as to what you think you should see in terms of the conditions of the day.
Well, obviously, I will be measuring the lapse rate. I will be the thermistors that I'm taking along at each station will be met, and this will be updated on a website live for everybody. So, if people are watching the live feed, they will be putting up a website which will show the temperatures. Every hour or so, we'll be taking a thermistor temperature, and on the website,
I'm still going to have the same question. I still have the same question. Are you going to be able to? Would you please make a prediction?
All right. Okay. So, in other words, for a prediction for how high I'm going to have to raise the post up to get the things to be in line. So what's I said?
No.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know what prediction.
What results you're going to get?
Well, I'm predicting. I'm predicting if the globe is true, that I'm going to have to raise to get this up in the auto level in my crosshairs. I'm going to have to raise the most distant target of 5.5 miles. I'm predicting, if the globe model is correct, that I'm going to have to lift up this. The people at the far station are going to have to raise this post up 20 feet above their bridge to make it align with the crosshairs in the auto level. That's my prediction.
Okay, it's not that difficult, I don't think. I'm asking you to predict what kind of refractive phenomenon the day will produce.
Okay, I'm going to hope. Well, obviously this depends on the weather, but I'm going to predict if it's not strange weather, it'll be standard refraction. And as I say, I'm going to try and do what's called a simultaneous reciprocal, semi-simultaneous reciprocal measurement, where I would take the auto level to one of the other stations and then look back at the first station and then try and work out from a zenith, reciprocal zenith, whatever it is, reciprocal zenith measurement thingy, to work out what the actual levels of refraction are. But if the physics is correct, then the amount of refraction effect would only be a few feet over that 5.5 miles. But yes, I will try and do a measurement that day. But that's like asking me to predict the weather. I mean, you might as well say to me, what's the weather like going to be on that day? Because that's going to affect refraction. But it is. That's what determines the refraction.
Okay, settle down.
My God.
Settle down.
Oh, Jesus.
It seems to me that I have been told numerous times by you and others that understanding and knowing the lapse rate, you should be able to predict whether or not you're going to have
Yes, but I won't know what the lapse rate will. Okay, so you're saying if I then go measure the lapse rate on the day in question, then what would I expect the refraction to be? Okay, I thought you implied I had to do it before. I thought you were making a prediction before I actually done the lapse rate measurement.
No.
Okay, well I could try. Yes, okay, I will try and do that live on the thing. I will then say, getting the information from the thermistor arrays along there, and I'll say we'll be measuring those every half an hour or hour, whatever, then put them on the website, and I'll then say, well, this is the formula for refraction given the lapse rate, which we'll be able to say, because we're going to have this thermistor array is going to give the temperature above the water every 3 feet or so above the water. I'm going to up to about a height of 20 odd feet. I will then know the temperature every 3 feet or so. Then from that, you should be able to determine what the refraction would be, and then I can then use the formula. So I would then be able to make tell you what the refraction will be.
And then my other request would be to have a still shot to show us what it looks like visually, not just. You
will not only have a still shot. I'll be taking high resolution 4,000 pixel still shots at regular intervals, but you'll also have the live feed going all the time at a resolution of 1080p.
Just crossing my T's and dotting my I's.
That's okay. So you'll have a live feed, assuming this all gets paid for, of 1080p for 8 hours, and then now Rant is getting me going for longer, which means I'm going to have to make sure my power supplies are going to be able to cope with this for a start. I've already got to have 2 marine batteries for all this. Going into the evening, which, oh my God, they need powering as well, don't they? Jesus Christ, I might need another third battery. Jesus Christ, to drive the lights. So I have this across where I was starting off that sentence now. So across 8 hours, damn it, I've forgotten what I was answering now. Suddenly occurred to me I need more power for the ranty suggestion. That just scared me a little bit. I forgot what the question was now.
You can move the time forward and not have 8 hours during the day. Just have like 4.
Yeah. Good suggestion.
If you're finding it hard to have so much, battery, especially if you're going to add lights.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, I must admit, I did think about that. There are some generators you can. That's right. For a couple of £100, I could have a generator doing all this. But I think if I get 2 big marine batteries and an inverter to drive things like the computers that are there and I also need things like long lengths of Ethernet cable, as well as all the Wi-Fi stuff. I think a couple of batteries will probably do it, but I have considered getting a generator to get through. But if I got these lights, then oh god, I need these different. Oh, that's going to come. Oh Jesus.
I
might need lots of batteries then. Oh dear. Okay, I'm gonna have to think. Well, perhaps I can. Okay, perhaps what I could do is to switch the lights on and off so they're not on all the time. Otherwise, because I think Sly had that problem as well. In his little test, he had some lights and they all ran out of power, so he couldn't then do anything more afterwards. So yes, I need to do some power management, and I'm going to need some more battery, big marine batteries that. Because I've also got to power. Because I've got to provide mains power at various points, and that's you have to use an inverter and marine batteries to do this. You can't really use car batteries, because they don't like being cycled, or they don't like being run down very much. You have to get a special sort of battery. But yeah, oh god, yeah, there's a lights thing. That does actually confuse. Yeah, god, right. But I suppose it. Oh.
I'm actually sharing my screen right now. So if you want to click on the show channel, I don't know if it's moving right now. Okay, so basically the star pole that you'll see in a minute. I'm basically at this location.
Out along the beach.
Oh, hang on, pull that. It's 5.5 miles away. It's 5.5 miles, this star pole. And when we zoom into it, so this is from an elevation too, so you'll see it on the right hand side. So there we go. Can you see that black and yellow star pole?
Yeah. That's 5.5 miles, is it?
That's 5.5 miles away with the P1000.
What magnification is it this here?
I'm still zooming in. I'm nowhere even close to. Let me go back again to over here. So let's zoom forward. So I'll play it from here. See, here I am. I'm just going to zoom in, and I don't even get close to maximum zoom. So this is so you should be expecting this. If you're on a bridge and you're trying to see something in the distance, here's a star pole. It's coming up there on the right hand side. So there it is on the right. So I'm going to zoom past that, and I'm still zooming into these buildings over here that are well.
And the P1000, that goes up to 125 times, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this isn't even at maximum zoom right now. But one thing you will see is that Inferior Mirage. Can you see in the distance the Inferior Mirage there? Yeah. But let's go back to the star pole. So that's 5.5 miles away, and the buildings in the distance, I believe, are 20 miles away. So you've got the star.
I thought it was 8. Oh, it was 18 to the shore. I remember calculating one.
Yeah, but this is from Cavendish Road, though. So this is further away.
It's not from your other point. Okay.
So star pole is 6 miles away. The buildings in the distance are 20 miles away. I'm still zooming it. So obviously, if you've got a target, it's going to be roughly about so far away. So this is how easy it is to zoom in with the P1000 if you've got a P1000.
Yeah, I mean, I've already calculated what magnification I require. because I want my targets to be 100 pixels in size. But I must have done that. Does interest me, that size of that thing, because I thought. So I wanted something of the sizes I'm talking about to be 100 pixels big. So I think that's big enough for you to see what the hell's going on. Yeah, that's quite clear. That can only be about a foot wide. That whatever you called it, pole thingy. What do you call it?
It's the star pole. It's around about. I'd say it's about 2. It's not even 2 foot wide. So.
Oh right, it's 2 foot. Okay, all right. So it is sort of right. Okay, yes, because this thing's gonna be 5 foot high, 6 miles. And but that's very clear, isn't it? Actually, and the magnification I'm aiming for with this telescope I've got, because I don't want to get a P1000. I can get a cheaper telescope that will do the same job, and then a cheaper camera. And I don't like the P1000 anyway, because it's got a fixed lens and everything, hasn't it?
So what do you have? What are you going to be using?
Using a telescope with a focal length of 1.5 meters. But then I'll probably put a doubler on that so I can get it to 3 meters. And I've worked out that if I want 100 pixel high targets so that people can, you'll only be able to see on the live stream. You might have some problems making out the targets, but because as I say, I'll be taking pictures as well periodically. I'm hoping those pictures, the target will be 100 pixels high. But yeah, you're getting, and so if that's 2 feet wide, so I'm hoping for something that's. Yes, so if that's 2 feet wide, say, I'm hoping that's only about about 5-6 pixels wide. I'm hoping to have something that's 10 times as big as that at that distance. Okay,
well, one other thing I will say is that you can now see the Inferior Mirage. So I've gone down slightly lower, and I've got down. I'll show you where I am actually in a minute. But this is just a typical day, and you can absolutely see the Inferior Mirage running through every single thing in the distance. At night time, that tends to dissipate and vanish. But
Yeah,
during the day, it's absolutely there. Let me show you my location so I know exactly where I am. So I'm on the wall. So it's low tide. I'm off the wall. So I'm around about 35 feet above the water right now from this location. And as I say, you can already see that massive Inferior Mirage. It's even on the post. So
yeah, I mean, Ranty, the way I've organised this observation
there we go.
is because I'm trying to make allowances for the Inferior Mirage, and Dr. John Dee, the supposed doctor in spectroscopy, did not, and that's what completely screwed his attempt last year, because he didn't allow for Inferior Mirages. I am, in theory, allowing for them by having my platform on a bridge, and then having the things I'm looking at being up to 30 feet high. I'm hoping, therefore, and I don't know this for a fact yet, so this is another thing that can go wrong, that will get me above the Inferior Mirage thing. Now, that's the big question. That's one of my reconnaissance jobs, as I say, but I won't be able to see something 5 miles, but I might be able to see if I'm getting Inferior Mirage issues at 3 miles, say, for instance, using this spotting scope. I haven't got the telescope yet. So I can see that there's a principle, but I believe I've made allowances for this. This could be one of the 51 things that could go wrong, that I have not made sufficient allowances for the Inferior Mirage, but I believe at the moment, I can't know until I've actually tested it, I believe I've made insufficient allowances for the Inferior Mirage, but I don't know this for a fact yet.
Yeah, one of the other things that I'll add into that is it doesn't really matter if you make allowances for the Inferior Mirage, because refraction is going to distort your image regardless of what you do.
Well, when I say allowances for it, I'm not going to try and say there's something that should be there that you can't see. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm only going to work out based on what you can actually see. So when I say allowances for it, I mean I've set up the observation and the targets at heights that I believe will mean the Inferior Mirage will not be obscuring.
Right.
Things.
So let me try to be a little bit more specific. In the observations that I've made, when I have made observations above the Inferior Mirage, the objects above the Inferior Mirage are elevated or lowered by refraction. So you're still not going to get an angular perspective on the object that you're shooting. The refraction
is angular perspective.
Carlos, yes, there will be a refraction effect, and I believe that it will be responsible if it's standard refraction. If it's standard refraction, not like some silly black swan type day. If it's standard refraction, if it's a normal sort of day, I believe it'll be a couple of feet that'll make a difference for. But as I say, I can also determine. But this is this is at 6 miles. Remember, the things you're talking about with your low.
I'm talking about a 6 mile observation.
Right. Well, normally standard refraction is a linear thing. So things are raised up or loomed, as I used to call them, until Thomas Young told me off for doing that. I'm going to say raised up by standard refraction. By SA, but I believe at a distance of 6 miles, it will only be a couple of feet or so. So, but it should be linear. Now, you must be perhaps getting other effects. If it's normal standard refraction, it's a linear effect, and you shouldn't get distortion. You're sort of implying that you'll get distortion as well. You'll get things moving up and down slightly, but if it's standard refraction, it'll only by a little amount. But it is dependent on the weather. So I am at mercy of the weather. If it could go bonkers. If it was an incredibly hot day or something, and there was some weird cold air that came over, for instance, or weird warm air, and the water was unusually cold. Fortunately, because it's only 6 feet deep, I will probably not have the sorts of issues you have with a lake or a river. So that's the other advantage of doing this on a canal. There will not be a big temperature difference between the water and the air, and that will help me a lot in not having big problems, hopefully, with mirages, which will exist when you've got a big river which has got very deep and it's much colder, or much warm. Well, God, depends. Well, actually, it is.
Yeah, it's not much colder and much.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to. It's this. I mean, that's one of the things I'm going to have to do reconnaissance on and find out. And that I'm hoping it'll just be a standard refraction day. And in those circumstances, you do not get the distortion you're talking about. You should not get major distortion of the objects above the Inferior Mirage. And anyway, I'm hoping I will be above the I mean, this touch. Yeah, I'll be able to tell because I mean that's a good point actually. You're raising that. What I could do is I could try and put several targets on the far one to get the maximum height, so that you can see that if the aspect ratio of the target's preserved. So, for instance, if there was some stretching, you would have a point.
That's a good idea.
So I could, and I'm going to put lines on it probably, so that you'll then be able to see whether the things is being stretched or not. So you're making a constructive point, Travis. So I could then extend it up further, and then in fact have a series of lines, and then see if they were linear. And I am getting a linear effect. But if I could, so if there was a big distortion occurring, as you're saying is possible, then you would see these lines compress or something, and then wiggle around. So yes, Travis, that's actually a good point, and I could try and eliminate that as a possibility by putting some more lines. And I was going to put it as a triangle, but yes, actually, if I had a series of lines, I could put two. Oh my God, I got 2 targets, man. Oh Jesus.
Well,
yes, okay, Travis. I'll try and take that on. Travis, I take that on
Okay.
board, Travis, and I would try and present. I would try and design targets that will show up any distortion, any non-linear behavior of the refraction effects.
Okay, I appreciate that. And was there some monkey out there from the peanut gallery that said something? Oh, that was Carlos. Carlos, did you say something?
No, I said that was a good idea for
Yeah,
Rumpus to do the lines.
He said something. He said something about my comment on angular perspective.
Yeah, what the heck is angular perspective?
The angular size of something due to perspective, Carlos. Catch up.
It's called angular size.
Okay, that's what I said.
Okay. And you said
Hey, Rumpus.
Go back to cracking your peanuts there, Carlos.
Hello, Brandon.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, so, Rumpus, if you set this up and you get all your targets out there and you're not able to align them, and what you see conforms to what you would expect on a flat plane, are you going to then say, well, based on this test that I did, I believe the Earth is flat?
Well, as I say, if that happens, I'll be jumping into the canal first, and then thinking, "What the hell am I going to say now?" And then I will. I'm not quite sure what I will say after that. I suppose the evidence is that it'll be live feed, so I won't be able to change anything, and it'll be there. So I'll try and think. I'm not sure. I'll have to try and prepare some response, but I'll certainly have some problems. That's for sure.
Important thing you gotta remember is, okay, so some people were, they were doing some stuff, and then other people were like, hey, don't do that stuff, and then other people were like, hey, yeah, they should do, that stuff. It's good that they're doing that stuff, and then the other people were like, I don't think they should be doing that stuff, and then the one they're doing, so things are like what I'm trying to say is that in conclusion, I have no idea. Important thing you gotta remember is, okay, so some people were, they were doing some stuff, and then other people were like, hey, don't do that stuff, and then other people were like, hey, yeah, they should do, that stuff. It's good that they're doing that stuff, and then the other people were like, I don't think they should be doing that stuff, and then they're doing, so things are like what I'm trying to say is that in conclusion, I have no idea.